Level 1, the enlisted soldier. You're 18. You don't walk into a recruiter's office with a plan. You walk in with nothing else left. The town you grew up in has one stoplight, a shuttered paper mill, and a gas station that doubles as the only diner for 12 miles. You've watched your older brother spend 3 years on a couch after the factory closed. You've watched your father work double shifts at a warehouse that will close in 8 months anyway. You already know what staying looks like. So you sign. Which rank would you stop at? Think about it, and drop your answer in the comments right now. Basic combat training is Fort Benning, Georgia. August, the red Georgia clay bakes under a sun that doesn't apologize. Your drill sergeant, Staff Sergeant Pruitt, doesn't yell because he's angry. He yells because volume is a tool, and he uses every tool available. Week 1, you learn to eat a full meal in under 5 minutes. Week 3, a recruit named Torres from El Paso stops at the top of the wall obstacle. His hands are torn open. He stares at them like they belong to someone else. Pruitt stands 6 inches from him and says, the quietest he's spoken all week. The wall doesn't care about your hands. Finish. Torres finishes. You don't forget that sentence. Not that week. Not ever. By week 8, you've stopped thinking about home the same way. You're tuned to something else now. Reaction time. Team accountability. The weight of a ruck at mile 11 when every muscle has already voted to stop. You graduate. Infantry. 1-station unit training runs directly into infantry school. You're airborne qualified by 19. The 75th Ranger Regiment is the direction your battalion sergeant points you. You don't fully understand what that means yet. You just know you're not finished. Level 2, the Ranger. You're 19. The Ranger Assessment and Selection Program, RASP, begins at Fort Benning with an instructor named Sergeant First Class Decker, who addresses your class of 108 candidates before the first event. Most of you will quit. That's not an insult. Quitting is a decision. The ones who scare me are the ones who stop deciding. By day 4, 29 men have voluntarily withdrawn. There is a specific kind of silence when a man drops his gear and walks to the collection point. Not judgment. Something more like weather, a fact of nature with no opinion about itself. RASP breaks your assumptions more than your body. Sleep deprived, soaked through 2 days of Georgia rain, you're asked to navigate a land course and call in a simulated fire mission, while an instructor asks irrelevant questions designed to fracture your concentration at the worst possible moment. On day 6, you make an error. Wrong azimuth. 2 degrees off. In a real scenario, that 2 degrees puts ordnance on your own position. Decker circles it without a word. That night, you fix the error in your head. Then fix it again. Until repeating it becomes structurally impossible. You earn the tan beret. Deployments follow. Eastern Afghanistan, 2008. Kandahar Province. Night raids are the Ranger's signature. Fast, deliberate, overwhelming. Your team moves through a compound at 0 to 14 hours in a village the size of a city block. 3 rooms in 14 seconds. Target secured. No friendly casualties. On the helicopter back, no one talks. Not from trauma, from focus. There is always a debrief coming. There is always something to sharpen. After your 3rd deployment, Master Sergeant Calloway, a 15-year veteran with a Ranger scroll going back to Iraq in 2003, pulls you aside after PT. You ever hear of the unit? Put your packet in, he says. You're an E5 with a clean record, a GT score of 118 and 3 deployments. They're going to look at you. You're 22. You submit the packet. Level 3, the Delta Force candidate. You're 23. The selection course for 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta runs twice a year, late March and late September, at Camp Dawson, West Virginia. Your orders say Morgantown, nothing else. A Delta representative meets you at the terminal, doesn't introduce himself, and points you to a shuttle. The West Virginia mountains are steep, forested, and indifferent. The course runs 4 weeks. Day 1. A rucksack, a map, a compass, a set of grid coordinates. No team. No instructor beside you. No timeline announced. The first ruck march is 12 miles. You're told a time standard exists. You're not told what it is. You cannot pace yourself against a number you don't have. You move as fast as your body allows and your will permits. At mile 8, your left knee speaks to you. Not sharp, just persistent. The kind that asks a question. You answer it by adjusting your stride and refusing to engage further. You finish. No one tells you your time. The marches get longer across 3 weeks. 15 miles. 18. The rucksack gets heavier. The terrain gets worse. One evening on the backside of a ridge in cold October rain, you shoot a bearing with hands that have lost fine motor sensitivity and find the next checkpoint. The evaluator makes a single mark in his notebook and says nothing. You learn to stop needing feedback. Moving is the only correct answer, regardless of how you feel about it. The final event is called the long walk. You begin before dawn. Your rucksack weighs 45 pounds. You are given coordinates, no distance, no finish line, no time limit. Move to each point. Receive the next. That is all. The first 10 miles are hard. The second 10 settle into a rhythm that has nothing to do with comfort. By mile 25, your mind offers exits. You've already proven something. No one would fault you for stopping. You recognize that voice. It isn't wisdom. It's exhaustion wearing a rational costume. You keep walking. The long walk covers 40 miles. You finish in just under 19 hours. You sit in the West Virginia mud, eat a ration bar, and say nothing to anyone. 2 weeks later, a letter arrives. You've been selected. You are a staff sergeant, E6, 23 years old. One of fewer than a dozen men in your selection class who made it through. Before we go further, if you've made it this far, comment what you want next. Hit that like button right now and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We upload every single day. Level 4, the operator. You're 24. The operator training course runs 6 months. It is where selection ends and transformation begins. You learn to shoot the way a surgeon learns to operate. Not quickly, precisely. A Delta operator fires thousands of rounds per week during OTC. Not to become fast, though speed follows, but to make correct action automatic enough that stress cannot interrupt it. Your hands learn a rifle and pistol the way a pianist learns scales. Below conscious thought, below hesitation. You learn close quarters battle in the kill house, a multi-room facility where threat and non-combatant targets appear in the same doorways, the same corners. A lethal decision made in the time it takes to exhale. You learn combat driving, surveillance detection, explosive breaching, lock entry. Trauma medicine, not the first aid version, but the kind where you pack a wound in complete darkness using only your fingertips because the power is out and the man in front of you cannot wait. Your trauma instructor, Chief Warrant Officer Reyes, lost 2 fingers in Fallujah in 2004 and uses the remaining 3 to demonstrate tourniquet application with a precision that embarrasses men with full hands. The enemy doesn't schedule himself around your equipment. You work with what the situation gave you. You finish OTC, assigned to C Squadron. Your first operation is a personnel recovery mission in northern Iraq, 2010. A compromised intelligence asset. 5-hour extraction window. 8 operators, 2 vehicles. Safe house confirmed. Asset extracted through a secondary entry point. 2 checkpoints cleared in 4 hours and 6 minutes. Nothing goes wrong. That bothers you slightly. Most operators walk away from a clean mission feeling settled. You walk away running the timeline backward, looking for the moments that could have broken differently. You find 3 of them. Small gaps between what you knew and what you assumed. You write them in your pocket notebook before the formal debrief even begins, and bring them to your troop's senior sergeant. He reads your notes without expression. Then he nods once. Most operators debrief what happened. You debriefed what nearly happened. Don't lose that habit. Level 5, the senior operator. You're 30, 6 years in the unit, 12 deployments, Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, one in a country whose name you don't say at a dinner table. Twice, something connected. Once in the forearm, through and through, missed everything essential. Once a fragment stopped by your chest plate. You didn't go home either time. You finished both. Missions. You are now the most experienced shooter in your troop. New operators study how you move through a building the way residents watch a senior surgeon. Not copying the motion, but reading the decision behind it. A young operator named Hargrove asks after a kill house exercise, "How do you know which room to clear first?" You read the geometry, you tell him. Entry angle, sight lines, where the threat is most likely standing when the door opens. You commit to that read and correct mid-movement if you're wrong. The one place you can't be is standing in a doorway waiting to be certain. Certainty costs more time than it saves. Hargrove will pass that down to someone else in 4 years. Your personal life has reorganized around the work. You were engaged at 27. She was patient, then honest. The relationship ended not with a fight, but with a quiet kitchen conversation where you both acknowledged your primary loyalty was not something you had chosen consciously. It had chosen you long before you understood it. You don't regret the work. You've started to understand what it costs. Your troop sergeant submits your name for team leader. You accept without hesitation. You are promoted to Sergeant First Class, E7. Level 6, the team leader. You're 33. You lead an assault team, 6 operators, every one exceptional. Your job is no longer to be the best shooter in the room. Hargrove quietly surpassed you in raw speed 14 months ago, and you noted it without ceremony. Your job is to make 6 decisions simultaneously that keep all 6 of them alive and on mission at the same time. That is a categorically different skill than anything selection tested. Pre-mission planning now consumes more hours than trigger pulls. Target packages studied like a chessboard, not reacting to what's in front of you, but thinking 4 moves out. Satellite imagery, pattern of life analysis, structural assessment, contingency routes, the distance to the nearest surgical team. Helmand Province, Afghanistan, 2014. Your team is tasked with capturing a senior logistics facilitator supplying networks across 3 provinces. Location confirmed. Pattern predictable. Insertion clean. What the intelligence picture doesn't show is a secondary guard position added to the eastern collat wall that afternoon. You breach at 0147. Primary structure clears in 38 seconds. Then a shooter opens from the eastern wall that appears on no blueprint. 2 operators go to ground. Sergeant Delacroix takes a fragment to the forearm from a wall that absorbs a burst aimed 2 feet to his left. 4 decisions in the next 80 seconds. Your debrief will later identify all 4 as the reasons everyone walks out. Facilitator secured. Delacroix Metavast. Back on duty in 5 weeks. At the debrief, Lieutenant Colonel Marsh goes through your decisions one at a time. Decision 3. East suppression before north extraction. Walk me through it. You explain. Sightlines. Timing. Delacroix's position relative to the extraction route. Marsh is quiet. I'd have gone north first. Looking at it now, I think you were right, and I wasn't. A lieutenant colonel, 14 years your senior, saying it plainly in front of the room. No politics. No ego. Just accuracy. The best leaders in the unit are not the ones who are always right. They are the ones honest, immediately, without hesitation, about when they aren't. You are promoted to Master Sergeant, E8. Level 7, the Sergeant Major. You're 38. You are the senior enlisted advisor for your troop, Sergeant Major E9. Alongside the troop commander, Captain Vance, you're responsible for the readiness and combat effectiveness of 41 operators. The work has shifted. You're no longer exclusively hunting men in compounds. Your troop's missions increasingly involve network dismantlement, patient, intelligence-driven operations spanning months before a door is breached. You attend more briefings than operations. You spent 15 years building instincts, and now the most important room you occupy some mornings is a conference room with a classified screen and men in suits who have never carried a ruck in their lives but who control the conditions your operators will work under. You adapt. Because what the unit found at Camp Dawson was not a skill. It was a capacity. To learn whatever the next requirement is, regardless of what the last one was. Captain Vance is West Point, Ranger qualified, intelligent, and new to the unit. Technically, you're superior. Experientially, here, you're student. You manage this carefully. You never correct him in front of others. You brief him thoroughly before every room he needs to project confidence in. You give him your read before decisions are finalized, not after. 3 months in, he pulls you aside. I came in thinking I'd lead this troop. What I figured out is that my job is to resource and protect what you've already built. I'm learning more watching you work in this building than I did in 3 years of schools. You don't tell him that's exactly how it's supposed to work. You tell him he's asking the right questions. That matters more. Level 8. The Squadron Sergeant Major. You're 43. You run a full Delta Force squadron. Multiple troops, support elements, attached enablers. 20 years in the unit. There are operators in your squadron who were in middle school when you finished the long walk. Your authority is significant. Your visibility is equally significant. And visibility at this level is exposure. You brief general officers. You sit in rooms at Fort Bragg and at the Pentagon with intelligence officials and NSC staffers and men from agencies that don't publicly name themselves. You speak plainly, a habit forged at Camp Dawson. And some of the people in those rooms are not accustomed to plainness. They expect options pre-shaped, pre-softened. You don't soften options. You present what is true. 2018, Eastern Syria. A raid on a senior facilitation coordinator goes wrong in a way no model predicted. A secondary element assessed as non-combatant is armed. 2 operators wounded, 1 seriously. Mission completes. Target captured. But Master Sergeant Fowler, 12-year veteran, one of the finest team leaders you've watched work, will not return to full operational duty. The inquiry finds no negligence. The intelligence was the best available. But somewhere above the operational level, a decision point needs a name. A memo surfaces. Your name is on the approval chain. You write your statement in 90 minutes. No hedging. No distribution of responsibility. You describe what you decided and exactly why. The inquiry closes. No formal action. But your name has appeared in a document that people 3 levels above you have read carefully. You understand the geography of that. You've watched it happen to others. You know what it means and what it doesn't. And the distance between those 2 things is not always as clear as you'd like. You stop sleeping cleanly for the first time in your career. Level 9. The Command Sergeant Major. You're 47. You are the Command Sergeant Major of 1st S FODD, the most senior enlisted position in the organization. 1 officer above you, the Commanding General. No enlisted position above yours. 29 years in the Army. 24 in the unit. Your job is now institutional. You shape how the unit selects, trains, retains, and transitions operators. You sit on policy reviews that will govern the next decade. Your input touches procurement, training pipelines, and the long-term readiness doctrine of the most capable counter-terrorism force on Earth. The work matters. You know it matters in a way that isn't abstract. You've lived every level of what the policies you're now writing will produce. But the results aren't visible at the end of an 8-hour mission. They're visible in the readiness of operators you'll never meet, in scenarios you'll never see, years after you're gone. You mentor 2 Command Sergeant Major candidates. One of them, Sergeant Major Chen, is going to be better at this job than you were. You've known it for 2 years. He sees institutional problems 3 moves ahead with a clarity that reminds you of yourself at his age, but sharper. You don't compete with that. You lean into it. You give Chen every conversation, every document, every lesson, not to inherit your conclusions, but to build his own process. 231 pages. You hand them to Chen without ceremony. No speech. No moment made of it. He reads it in 2 nights. Comes back with 14 questions. Every one of them a question you'd hoped someone would eventually ask. You spend an entire afternoon answering them. When it's over, you understand that this, sitting across from the man who will carry the work forward, watching him build his own understanding of it, is the most important thing. You've done in a uniform since the long walk. Level 10, the veteran. You're 49. Your retirement ceremony is a Thursday morning at Fort Bragg. A formation, a few remarks, a folded flag from the commanding general, who shakes your hand for a long time without saying much. Which is exactly right. Shadowbox, plaque. A photograph from Eastern Afghanistan, 2009. 8 men in kit standing in front of a CH-47 at dawn, not smiling, because the picture was taken 30 minutes before an operation and no one smiles 30 minutes before an operation. You look at that photograph for a long time. 7 of those faces are gone from the unit, not all to combat. 1 to a car accident in Colorado in 2015. 1 to a cardiac event at 46. 1 to something slower and less visible. The kind of exit nobody in the unit discusses directly, but that everyone who's been here long enough understands is part of the same long accounting. You drive off Fort Bragg, through the gate, and onto a highway that feeds into a country that has no idea you exist. For the first time in 31 years, no formation is expecting you at 0500. That feeling lasts about 4 days. On day 5, a former operator running a security consulting firm in Virginia calls. A seat at the table. Real work. Good pay. You listen. You think about it for 2 weeks. You say no. Not because the work wouldn't matter, but you have spent 31 years being useful to a structure, and you understand now, in a way that wasn't available to you at 23 in the West Virginia mud, that there is a version of usefulness that belongs entirely to yourself, to the people who waded through deployments, to a son who grew up in a house where his father was present on the good rotations and somewhere else entirely, even when he was home on the hard ones. You start coaching youth wrestling at a high school 6 miles from your house in Fayetteville. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, Saturday mornings. The kids don't know who you are. To them, you're a quiet man with a deliberate way of teaching who occasionally looks at them with an intensity that makes them stand up straighter without knowing why. On a cold Saturday in November, a sophomore named Marcus runs a takedown drill and stops at the last second, every time. 7 repetitions, same hesitation, same spot. His body knows the move. Something else is stopping him. You end the drill. Walk over, crouch to his level. The hesitation is the danger, not the move itself. Make the move. Correct mid-action if you have to. You can always adjust once you're committed, but commit. The only thing you cannot recover from is staying still when the moment is asking you to move. Yes, sir, Marcus says. He runs the drill again. No hesitation. You stand up. You don't say anything else. You've been teaching that lesson since a wall in Georgia, a ridge in West Virginia, a doorway in Helmont, a conference room at Fort Bragg. Every time you refused to stay still when stillness felt easier. You just didn't always know that's what you were doing. You didn't reach the top of the most elite military unit on Earth by being the most talented man in selection. You reached it by being the one who kept moving. Through a doorway, through a decade, through every level where the weight got heavier and the cost of a wrong decision got larger. And the only thing that stayed constant was the requirement to commit when everything in you wanted to wait. The long walk never ended. You just got better at walking it. That's what Delta Force was. That's what you were.